welcome to the Daily Surrender, a space for real, raw, and vulnerable conversations about what it truly means to live in alignment with God's design. I'm Jennifer Ragazzo, a soul-aligned wellness coach who is far from perfect and still figuring out this whole human experience, just like you. Here we talk about the messy, the beautiful, and everything in between as we learn to let go, trust more, and step into the peace and freedom that's already waiting for us. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Daily Surrender. I'm Jen Ragazzo, and in today's conversation, we are going to be continuing the conversation that I had with a dear friend and colleague of mine, Carmen Hunter. Welcome back, Carmen.
Hi, thank you.
Where last week we were diving into the whole concept of spiritual friendships and iron sharpening iron in the relationships that we have in our lives, and how you can really lean into them and use these sacred friendships to continue to grow and evolve. And if you missed last week's episode, go back to last week's episode. It's a really good one. Carmen and I lift the veil on our 10-year friendship and many different seasons of our friendship, and where God has really prompted both of us to lean in more, use this beautiful sacred relationship that we have for our own growth and evolution, and really truly for kingdom work. So Carmen and I are unique, and we shared again a little bit of our uniqueness in last week's episode. And we're going to dive in today more to something we touched upon at the end of the episode. And that is how both of us, on our own personal journeys of growth and really seeking the freedom and fullness of life that all of us desire and want, how MDMA came into our lives. MDMA, not just as a drug that we used, but as something that we really used in a guided therapeutic setting to help us to deeper connect with God within. And what Carmen and I are going to do in today's episode, we're going to expand upon that. We want to share more about how to use MDMA in a sacred healing setting, how we use it, what we've really learned about ourselves in diving into this tool as a modality. So, Carmen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here for this conversation. It's so important that we share this information with others. I mean, once we blew the lid off of it, it was like, how do we get the word out to others? So I'm really excited to be here and share more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is fun. This conversation is long overdue. And so if you're here and you're intrigued, buckle up, grab a cup of tea. And we're going to dive in. We're going to talk a little bit about why we chose this modality, what it is, what it has done for us spiritually, and why we feel so passionate, Carmen and I, about bringing it into a very sacred setting and using it actually as a tool to connect deeper with God within us. So yes, we're going to talk God and drugs. Welcome to the podcast episode.
Yes. It's such a powerful, again, it's a powerful modality. It's so powerful that I went from being a health coach to being an MDMA guide. And I wrote a blog about that on Substack. I mean, it was such a big thing for me, Jen. And we'll get into that in a moment, but that I went, okay, if I had 18 plus years ago when I started coaching, if I had this on my plate or in my toolbox to help others, it would have come before changing my food, movement, stress, all of those things. So it just made the most sense to me to be able to take this particular approach and make it first, really, for everyone to be able to find that connection with God, because without that, the other things are just temporary fixes, right? Yeah. Yep.
Can you expand more upon that, Carmen? Like, why are the other things essentially temporary fixes if we're not going to the deeper roots of the issue?
Yeah. So, I mean, I created the 7 essentials when I became a health coach over 18 years ago. And of course, it's the basic things that everyone talks about, whole food, movement, sleep, stress, working on stress, having more fun in your life, those types of things. And the two things that have always been a part of my health coaching
Mhm.
are addressing trauma and spirituality. And
Mhm.
the reason that I added spirituality and trauma to those first five essentials was because I would be working with people. I'd work with people for about 3 months. That was
Mhm.
my program. And at the end of 3 months, we'd see so much progress. But there might be something with every single one of them. There might be something that was like, I'm almost where I want to be, but something's missing. And I'd run through the checklist. Okay, you're eating whole food. You're going to bed appropriately. You're working on your stress. You're having more fun. You're sleeping. What's missing? And the ultimate thing that would always come up would be like, oh, Carmen, ask them about their connection with God.
Mhm.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your spirituality, right? And
Mhm.
then the other thing would be like if they had a great connection with God, I'd be like, okay, there's got to be something else. Is there anything in your life that you think might be under the surface of your subconscious mind that is
Mhm.
driving you to carry the weight, to not be able to overcome
Mhm.
the psoriasis or whatever might be going on?
Mhm.
It's like, well, there was this one thing when I was younger, and I've carried a lot of shame about it, or I've carried a lot of
Mhm.
anger about it. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So when there are things under the
Mhm.
hood that are causing the problem, right? It doesn't matter
Yep.
how many times you paint the hood of the vehicle. If there's
Mhm.
something underneath the surface that's keeping the car from running appropriately, right? Then we have to go after those things first. So I
Mhm.
flipped my health coaching model upside down and started going after spirituality and trauma probably in 20, I would say it was like 2013, 2014.
Mhm.
I started to see that more and more. It didn't
Mhm.
matter if all of these earthly things were being taken care of,
Mhm.
if the spirituality, the connection to God, and the working on the trauma that was suppressing these emotions were not being addressed.
Mhm.
So, again, flip it upside down, and then changing the way that you eat becomes easier when you're no longer eating your feelings.
Mhm.
Getting out and moving your body and putting your eyes to the sun becomes easier when you have decided that you're worth that extra walk in the morning or whatever it might be, right? So the surface things yes, they're important. Eat whole food, move your body, change the way you see stress. All of that is
Mhm.
important, but sometimes you can't even take that first step if you don't feel like you're worthy
Mhm.
of the love that you should be giving to yourself to have those things in
Mhm.
your life. So, does that answer the question?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
and that's very much the way that I've been coaching as well for the past 12 years,
Hmm.
and when I met you and I did your coaching program with the Institute for Functional Health Coaching, one of the reasons why I was really attracted to you and your program is your model, the flipping of the model. And for me, it gave me permission to lead with that. And I have been. And over the years of working with hundreds and hundreds of different clients, I know you've experienced the same. I've really seen the freedom that is found when people start to dig into those deeper issues. They take a look at the metaphysical. They're looking at where the emotional congestion is in their body and really where the misalignment with their divine design is.
Yeah,
And how do we find alignment with our divine design? We find alignment with God within us.
yeah,
And I think this right now, this conversation that we're having here, not just literally on the podcast, but the conversation in general is so important because we're in a time where so many people are awakening. They're desiring more. They're realizing that there's more to this life. They're hurting. A lot of people are challenging the narratives that have been fed to us in the programming. 2020 was this big, giant global awakening for many, many people.
yeah,
Many people. And we've seen since 2020 this paradigm shift where people are realizing that they can't depend on all of the narratives that are fed to them from external sources. And that rocks people. That, for many people, creates a lot of fear and anxiety. Um, and we've also got a subset, a growing subset of people who are desiring that real healing, that deeper connection to God, a deeper connection that's not just found in religious systems.
mhm,
And in that, there's this desire to rise up, to ascend. And many people don't know how to even be. begin. I see it
Yeah.
in my practice. I see it in the people that come here. They know that there's more, and they're craving more than just the surface level physiological support for the symptoms that are showing up in their body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know what's interesting? And I'll, on the heels of that, I think we're at a place, and we talked about in the first episode how I am not afraid to speak up and say the things and put it
Yeah.
out there. I think we're finally at the place where people are sick of biohacking their
Yeah.
health
Yeah.
in ways that aren't giving them permanent results, right?
Mhm.
So here's the thing. What we understand and what we've come to know is you can't biohack your way to God or a closer
Mhm.
connection to God. That is
Mhm.
all, it's free, number one.
Yeah.
You have to go in and not out to outsource. You can't outsource
Mhm.
that, right? You have to go in to find
Yeah.
it. And there's
Yeah.
no set of glasses, vibration plate, sauna, or
No.
anything else in this world that is going to help you to hear the voice of God. The
Mhm.
only thing that's going to do that is to get still. And in this world that we are living in, and the craziness that happened from
Mhm.
2020 on, when everyone has the answer, right?
Mhm.
It is really hard to even find 1 minute to get still to start to hear the voice. So that I believe, and that's just speaking from my side,
Mhm.
MDMA truly helped me to imprint that even deeper on my own soul, that
Mhm.
being still is the first place we begin.
Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
And we're going to get into our own personal healing journeys using MDMA and how it helped us to really break through what we both felt was this glass ceiling that we were hitting in our own journeys. So Carmen and I are here having this conversation not just out of head knowledge by any means. It's we're
Mm-mm.
really two women who walk our talk. Behind the scenes, we're doing it. We're doing this deeper work. We have always been and will continue to be people who challenge the narrative. We're truth seekers. And for us, the old ways and the systems were not working. They weren't working for us. And I really believe that God brought these different things into our lives and the experiences that we've had so that we can walk through things and really, really be able to relate to the people that come on our path. And what we're seeing here today, we're seeing this rise. It's this collective desire where people are craving, they're really craving these deeper soul level healing and freedom, and that's
Peace.
where,
They want
and peace.
peace.
They want peace. Like, people want peace. They do not want to be fed more stuff, more things to do and buy, and the buckets of supplements and the biohacking tools. I Between the two of us, Carmen and I have tried almost all of it. And what we really came to is it's time for us individually, if we choose to seek truth over comfort, and when we say comfort, there's comfort in staying in sameness. There's comfort in staying in the cozy, creepy, dark cave because it's very familiar and it's what we know. And yet it's really painful. Many people, and I've been there myself, and you've been there yourself too, where we feel very stuck, and that's where the nervous system is also calibrated. So the nervous system is wired for us to stay in safety, and it perceives safety to be sameness. But our consciousness is realizing, okay, something needs to change. There is so much more. And how do we find it? And as you shared so beautifully, it's found when we get really still. It's found when we get quiet. It's found when we listen to that small but very powerful voice that's inside of us. And because this world is so noisy, noisier than ever, we're being programmed from every which direction. We've got media at our fingertips. Because of that, that's has created a challenge for each of us to in the being still. Like, I know I had to learn how to even be still. It was so hard for me to sit for a minute. And even when I did, the thoughts in my head would crowd out that still small voice. And so, MDMA has been an incredible, incredible tool. It's not a fix all, not at all. There's nothing external that can fix us, but it's been a tool that's helped us immensely
Yeah.
in being able to tap in and hear and quiet the noise of this world and to find that peace.
Yeah.
And from there, when you find that, then the ripples come in the healing. You know, those physiological symptoms start to disappear because we're not living with this jacked up nervous system where we're stuck in fight or flight and we don't even understand why. So let's talk a little bit, Carmen, about our own personal experiences. You know, just share with our listeners here, you know, what have we done? What even led us to this place where, you know, we found MDMA and we brought it into our own lives and as a tool.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just briefly kind of intro a little bit, and then I'm gonna let you share first because
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know experienced it first. But so here's the thing: when you've exhausted all efforts, right? You've done every functional, you know, medicine, lab, test, or modality of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
and you haven't found the relief that you've been seeking, right? Then you start to look at, oh well, maybe there's something in therapy, maybe there's cognitive behavioral support, EMDR, brain spotting, neurofeedback, all of those things. So we start reaching outside of ourselves. And then it's like, ooh, plant medicine and meditation and silent retreats and all of the things that are out there, right? So the very first, you and I were both, without
Yeah.
even knowing, I think, too much. You were looking at plant medicine and doing all these
Yeah.
things. I was looking at ketamine and plant medicine, and we were both just like doing our own little seeking, but
Mm-hmm.
not really talking to each other about it at the time too
Mm-hmm.
much. The giant leap into our spiritual friendship, MDMA shoved us into
Mm-hmm.
that part of our friendship. Truly, I
Mm-hmm.
believe, because when you called me that day, now I'll let you take it from here, and
Mm-hmm.
you shared that, I felt like there was like an
Mm-hmm.
instant deeper dive that we took in our friendship. So I'll let you
Mm-hmm.
start there, and then you can pass it on to me, and we'll take it from that
Yeah,
point. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. In
Hmm.
past episodes, I've touched upon my own journey. I've sprinkled it throughout the different episodes, but summing it all up for those of you listening today here, I would say that as soon as I stepped into adulthood, I started seeking healing, for a lack of a better word. I wasn't even quite sure what I was seeking outside of essentially peace and comfortability in my own skin. In my early 20s, I was going through a lot of health challenges with a lot of different things. I was really caught up in the allopathic medicine world. And so there would be side effects from different medications that I was given to band-aid symptoms. And it just spiraled me into more and more of a state of dis-ease. And while I was going through a lot of different physical challenges in my life, I also was spiraling into dark depression and anxiety and chronic insomnia. And so I started therapy. I was in college when I went to my first therapist. And then in my 20s, I went back and I did another deeper dive with a therapist. We were really working on body dysmorphia and orthorexia, which was an issue for me at the time because that was the only way that I knew how to control. I was introduced at the time to Louise Hay, and that was the very first time that I'd ever learned that metaphysical is even a thing and what that even is. And so we were addressing that from a therapeutic angle at the time. It just continued on. And again, I don't need to go into all the details of my health journey, but I would say like with each step, I would learn and implement new things, but it wasn't enough. I wasn't getting to the core. I didn't know what the core was. That's the thing. Like when I scan over 30 years of being a seeker and someone who has this no quit in me when it comes to figuring things out and understanding myself. And really, truly, my desire has always been to live a life that honors God, that to live a life that God desires for me to live and to be who God created me to be. And I would say that, but again, I didn't understand what that even meant. So, along my journey of seeking understanding and truth and peace and freedom, and again, grabbing on to all these different modalities. So, I would see physical, people for physical support, and that would be all kinds of healers. I stepped outside of allopathic medicine in my late 20s, and I started exploring the world of, I'm going to use air quotes for those who can't see me, but it's like natural medicine, or more holistic medicine. And it was like the wild, wild west. And I did it. Whatever it was, I would like try it. I've been hypnotized. I've done all kinds of energy work and acupuncture and herbs and naturopathy and you name it, and functional medicine. And I started to actually dive into that myself and bring that into my coaching practice when I started coaching. And alongside of it, I was still compartmentalizing a lot of mind, body, spirit. So it would be like, okay, let's do all the things for the physical, like all the things. I mean, I personally owned over the years probably $30,000 worth of biohacking stuff. I would buy the things. And I'd get so excited and they wouldn't be it. I'd go to a certain modality of therapy. I've done EMDR too. I know you've done it multiple times. I've done Gupta. I would do the things and I'd get very excited and it just wouldn't be quite it. It wasn't fixing me. I was still looking for things to fix me. And then spiritually, I was raised in Christianity. And so I did what I knew to do. I was like, well, maybe if I'm just a better Christian, then I will be better. I'll be freer. I would hear these things like freedom in Christ. What does it even mean? I don't know what it means. Maybe it means I need to do another Bible study. Okay, I'm going to lead the Bible study. I'm going to do Bible study fellowship, and I'm going to just be this super Christian. And yet there was this longing inside of me. There was still this emptiness that I wasn't quite nailing it, or I wasn't quite finding it. And I understand now why. And for me, it's been my journey has been the stepping stones that have led me to the wisdom and understanding that I have today. And I don't regret any of it. I'm actually really grateful because I have the ability to hold space for other people with a great amount of compassion and understanding because I've been in their shoes. The details might be different, but I understand the longing and the desire. And so, again, I've done a lot of different modalities spiritually, mentally, physically. And I've shared here, and I shared a little bit last week on the podcast, but when I had my darkest night of the soul. I mean, it was dark night of the soul. It was the very beginning of 2020, coinciding with the world going through this really dark period. That's not lost on me either, that there was this collective shakeup, so to speak, in the world to wake us up. And for me, I already was in a place of like, I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. I'm running a really successful coaching practice. I am working in this functional medicine, naturopathy, integrative health coaching, all the things space. And but my behind the scenes, like if I have to swallow one more supplement and I'm running one more functional test that tells me that I'm on fire and I don't know how to fix it, I just wanted to cry and scream. And so in 2020, I just had a breakdown and my knees hit the ground and I prayed and I asked God for help. And that help came in the form of a woman who showed up to help me with all the things. And that's Molly. So as I shared again in last week's episode, I worked with her intensely and very closely and tore the house down. I really started to learn how to embody what I was practicing and I was teaching, like it's mind, body, spirit, and as I had shared with you, Carmen, I learned in your program that I had done years prior how to prioritize spirituality and why it's so important that we are not just relying on our own self, right, for our healing. And I was doing it, but I just it wasn't clicking because there was more in the way for me. I didn't understand my own mental constructs that became the belief systems that I lived from. And a lot of them were very limiting. And so much was in my subconscious mind, and I could not get into it. Molly was amazing. She helped me to really, really find my voice, to understand that I am valuable, that I am worthy, that I was created on purpose for a purpose. But see, in my relationship with her, we were very, very, very close. We were not just mentor and mentee. We became I mean, we were soul sisters. I mean, I have absolutely no doubt. But I also became very dependent on her as a human being to be this bridge between me and God. And even though she would say, I'm just the bridge, I'm just the bridge, Dan, like you can have direct access to God that is inside of you. I was very reliant on her. And so when she died in June of 2023, we had a runway, her and I had a runway, and she prepared me, and I walked that thin veil between here and there with her. And when anybody's lost someone that you love and you're very close with, nothing prepares you. Grief is grief, and you have to experience it. And it hit me hard. It hit me so hard that my body physically broke down again. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And, metaphysically, I understood like what there was something trapped inside of me, and I couldn't figure it out. And I was doing all the things. I even hired another colleague of mine that I greatly respected to help work with me and be another set of eyes, because I didn't know what to do. And that was the season that I was praying for something. And, you too, we both had our own behind the scenes and the things, and you were still recovering and healing from the breakdown of your marriage and parenting a very angry child who was very hurt and by the breakup of your marriage. So you're doing your thing over there. And I knew you had done ketamine, and I was considering it when you did ketamine a few years ago. And I remember thinking, because Molly had said, I haven't seen long-term positive effects in the people that I know who've done ketamine. And I'm like, okay, I just wasn't feeling that strong pull to it. But after she died, I was like, what else is there? What God, please lead me. And it became another prayer of mine. And I was like, do I have to go back to coaching therapy? It's like, done it. I've done it. I've done it. I've done it. Do I need to do another program like with DNRS, or because I've done it? And what do I need? Do I need to be hypnotized again? And I was looking into plant medicine. I'm very open to anything. I don't buy into like the different constructs. Well, oh, it's illegal, then it's bad. Well, there's a lot of things in the world that are legal that are bad for us. And then there's things that are illegal when you follow the thread of why, you understand, well,
Yeah.
it's that effective. So I was very open, and I was considering going to a retreat in Mexico for psilocybin. And I talked to the director twice, and I couldn't pull the trigger on it. And I had a client that I was working with for a very long time. And we would do these monthly check-ins, and she sat before me. And when she sat before me that day, she was just visibly different. She was just everything about her energetically. She was more peaceful and soft. And I knew her story well. She's a psychotherapist. So it's not like she wasn't doing her work. And she came to me for help with autoimmune issues and physical things that kept popping up, even though she lived incredibly healthfully. And we only could get so far in our work. And she did MDMA because she was encouraged by her brother who had done it, and they had experienced similar trauma in childhood, and he had been encouraging her, and she did it, and it just completely changed her life. And when she sat before me that day, I got that hit that you got, Carmen, when I shared with you. I felt in my bones that this was something that I'm to do. And to be completely honest, I didn't even know what it was. I had no idea. I'm here focusing on plant medicine because I'm all holier than thou and thinking, well, it's a plant, then that's great. I don't need any, medication. And so I get off and I'm Googling and searching, and I find a podcast by Andrew Huberman, and I listen to it. And the second that I learned what it does to the amygdala, I knew intuitively that that was for me. I found a guide and I booked my journey, my first journey. And those weeks leading up to it were, I already could feel myself leaning into the experience and leaning into the change that was coming. And so for me, just in wrapping this all up. But for me, when I went in, and I didn't tell anyone, and I mentioned that too last week in our episode, but I didn't share it with anyone. The only person I did tell was my husband, because he knew I would be going away. I did go away for this retreat. I really, really wanted it to be something that was sacred, and I was gifting this to myself, and it was a space that I was creating. And so my guide had offered for me to come there, and I did. I happened to know her, which was more divine synchronicity. And the second the medicine really kicked in, I I mean, everything I had been holding inside just came out like all the grief. I spent the first 2 hours of my journey grieving, openly, fully, completely grieving. And on the other side of the grief, I felt the flip side of grief, which is love. And I felt the immense enormity of God's love through Molly, the love that Molly showed me that was God's love. Like, it was clear as day to me, and I was able to get it up and out of my body. I had been holding it in, and there was reasons, and MDMA really showed me what was in my subconscious that had me struggling so much with her loss, with my dependency on her, why I struggled with people pleasing, why I read all the books and did all the things and hired all the people, and every therapist and coach I'd ever worked with has helped me with people pleasing and boundaries. And yet it still dysregulated me. I saw all of it. I could follow the thread to the deepest, deepest roots of where that conditioning started and where I began to erect the mental constructs that were holding me back from being able to fully heal, that kept me in a state of constant dysregulation, that kept my cortisol dysregulated, my hormones impacted, my thyroid function impacted, my gut health. I mean, yeah, for the listeners here, since, we talk everything. After Molly died, I started where I couldn't get off the toilet. I mean, I was just like pee pooping. And again, I know how to address the gut microbiome. I had even succumbed to running 2 different functional tests on my microbiome, and the colleague that I hired to help me, I was like, let's go over it. And she just, what she said to me? It's nervous system. I was like, no shit. Great. I'm glad that I spent like $700 on stool tests to find out that it's nervous system dysregulation. Well, within 10 days of my first MDMA journey, after doing all the things, all the things, all the things, that stopped. That's never been an issue since. Like, it completely stopped. But I basically felt terrified that Molly wasn't no longer in the world, because she became the IV drip of me feeling special, seen, loved, and valued. And even though she said I stand as a bridge, my mind really clung to her as a human. And it was, I was able to see that I needed her to die. That sounds crazy and wild, that there was a gift in there, that there was love in there, and that I could walk that bridge without anybody. And just knowing that God is right there inside of me, loving me, seeing me, providing for me. So my first MDMA journey was the most life changing experience I have ever, ever, ever been through. And it took everything that I had been studying and learning and diving into my entire life, all 30 years of doing all the things. And it was like the ultimate culmination of all of it. And I remember laying in bed that night thinking, I'm going to bring this work to the world. I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients. A lot of people, they leave my, guidance, and they're soaring and they're doing great in life. But there's been quite a few that were like me. We couldn't quite get into their subconscious mind. We couldn't break through to these constructs, and they would only get so well, or they were really dependent on buckets of supplements to keep them well, or they would have flares when they'd get triggered by something and they didn't understand it. So I knew I'd bring the work to this world, and I have. I actually immediately started bringing this, and this list of people that God laid on my mind, I shared it with them, and I've been blessed to have guided many of them on journeys and experienced like what feels like miraculous healing. So all of that said, that is my story. And then you were one of the very first people that I could not wait to tell. And we got on like a 2-hour conversation. And I think you were like searching for a guide, that conversation. So
Hmm.
I will let you take it from here.
Yeah, yeah. So I know, thank you for sharing that. And every time I hear that story, I hear something new in it. You know what I mean? I hear something even more promising. I mean, you're more it's almost like I can't explain it, Jen, but we've talked about so much over the years when it comes to health, and we're like, oh, this worked for me, and oh, you should try this. We've signed up under the same people for certain things, and we've both continued to seek. Right?
Yes.
It's one reason why my Instagram is now called Peace Seeker.
Yeah.
Right? I changed it after doing ketamine and changing my business and everything because I've been an eternal peace seeker all of my
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
So much like you, Louise Hay was my first book. I think I was
Mhm.
16. My mom gave it to me, and partnered with that book because she saw something going on with me as a teenager. Came along the book Codependent No More by Melody Beattie.
Mhm.
Now, if you are a
Yes.
person that's been out
Read
in the
that too.
world doing your work in any capacity, you know those two books, right?
Mhm.
Well, I was a teenager when those books came into my life, and I still have them both, and I carried them throughout my life thinking, well, I don't need these books. I can do all of this. I can do this on my own. I was very hyper independent throughout my life, always the one that people would come to, but never the one that needed anything. So launching forward in my life through a series of I say bad decisions. I don't regret anything in my life, but decisions that my mom and dad were gasping at, choices I had made about college, quitting college, trying to go into an environment of work that just kept me out partying and doing things that were unsavory for my health. Fast forward me into debt and then drop me right back into my parents' home at 20. I think I was 24 or 25. I can't even remember. And I went, what the hell am I doing with my life? What the hell? I ran out the door, hyper independent, thought I was just, going to do it all on my own, only to land at my parents' house in significant debt, which with a lot of health things that started showing up because I stopped partying, I stopped smoking, I started going to bed when normal people go to bed, I started working a 9 to 5 job, I started going to the gym, all of these things. But along with all of this so-called normalcy became the noise, the internal noise that was bubbling up within me. Because now that you've normalized your life, Carmen, you have a consistent schedule, you're not distracting, numbing, and shutting out the things that are trying to talk to you from within. You have no choice but to start to listen. So, along with that, I decided, well, I'm not going to listen. So, I got vertigo, fibroids, endometriosis, chronic pain syndrome, migrating pain throughout my body. I mean, just name it. I was the master number. So if I couldn't use the things I was using before, I was going to use my mind, right? And distract. So fast forward into marriage, which ended in divorce 16 and a half years later. We were together almost 18 years, I believe. And in that marriage was significant betrayal. And one of the things I want to share here also is this, because I'm going to tell you about my journey in just a moment. But I, all of my life, I have always looked at the things that I have experienced and said, I don't have regret because it takes me to the next step of who I am.
Mhm.
It takes me into the next part of what I'm supposed to be. So there's never been a time where I've gone back and I shouldn't have done that. That never should have happened. None of that. I said, okay, what did I get out of that? And how did it change me? And throughout my life, I've had, and you were part of my journal burning experience at my house when you came to visit. And I had told you I have a lot of books I've been writing since I was 6, since I was old enough to hold a pen and say, I slept over at Jamie's house last night, or whatever it might be. I've been writing. And in those journals, as I've started to uncover them and open them up and read through them, I've always been seeking God. Always, in every single book I've ever written, and there has been some reference to finding God and what do you want from me and what am I supposed to be doing? I was raised as a Lutheran. We grew our own wheat. We made our own first communion bread. Like I went to the church, the lock-ins, the church camp, all those things. But when I look back at those days, I never felt the deep connection to God.
Mhm.
Okay,
Same.
so all of my life seeking that. So after the divorce, and like you mentioned earlier, me and my son moved away from his hometown and back to where my family was. And I took on this, I can do this. I'm over it. I've forgiven everything. And I dove headfirst into my business, right? Growing my business, taking care of my son, all of the things. But what I was doing was I was using work and single momming and victimhood to shove down all of the painful things that I was not able to see or look at or be willing to look at or able to deal with. I didn't know what to do with all of it. So, but when all that happened with my marriage, I had already experienced going to like 3 different EMDR people because there was an unsettled feeling. I was seeking this peace. I couldn't find it. I went to 4 brain spotting therapists, which I'll talk about in just a moment, endless cognitive behavioral therapy, Reiki, kinesiology. I mean, just name it, I probably did it. And every time I would sign up to do something new, I'd get excited. This is the answer. This is the answer to the problem. This is going to fix me. This is going to help me to feel peace in my life. And when the betrayal happened, I went into therapy. Like I want her to move into my house. If I'm honest with you, I'm like, could you just move in just for a couple months and help me get over this shit? Cause I don't think I can do this without you. And God bless my therapist, but she was like, oh, honey, I wasn't serious, but internally, I didn't feel like I could survive by myself. Right. So she said, let's just go head first. Let's do some brain spotting. I'll throw you into some neurofeedback immediately afterwards. And let's take it from there. Probably the most powerful experience I had outside of ketamine and MDMA, because what brain spotting did was it cracked my brain open and showed me the painful memories, showed me how to access them. I could feel them throughout my body and helped me to reframe my nervous system about what they really meant, what those memories really were inside of my mind. It took me back to the day that I was born, where I developed insecurity, abandonment issues, people pleasing, codependency, all of that, because the attachment from my mom occurred at my birth. So, I love talking about attachment wounds and things like that, because what people don't understand is what your adult problems are, whether it's, insecurity in relationship, people pleasing, perfectionism, codependency, whatever it might be. It started way, 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 way back in your life. In some place in your life, your nervous system got wired in a certain way. Yes. And for me, it was seeking attachment because of my insecurity from the loss of the attachment to my mother. Okay. So let's fast forward back to that experience. It was the first time that I actually realized I know what's in my mind. I just haven't been able to access it or touch it. I didn't know how to get there. I knew I wanted to move through that stuff to overcome the codependency and the insecurity and all of that. I didn't know how. So neurofeedback and brain spotting for me cracked my brain open to what was possible for me to find with the help of something in some capacity, right? The modality of neurofeedback and brain spotting was the first time I actually recognized that I have the power to do this. Well, life took over. And after that move, it was all pushed back down again and I couldn't access it. And I was becoming more and more dysregulated. My thyroid, my weight, my everything. I mean, my nervous system was shot. And through a series of very hard experiences with my son, which I think you and I are going to come into a parenting podcast and share some of those hard things, I said, it's time for me. I can't do this. It's time for me to find an answer. So with, I think, a year left of my son living with me at the time, I explored ketamine. And during that experience, I actually, my mind was wide open to where I could actually touch God in my mind. I could find him. I knew where he was. So it was a beautiful experience. It did amazing things for me. It helped me to overcome the fear of going back into psychedelics, hallucinogenic type of things. I had a lot of fear around those things, plant medicine, all of that, because I realized when God is in you, there's nothing that can hurt you. Okay. So you can have a little bit of trepidation and fear around these modalities, but when you have that deep connection to the divine God within you, there's really nothing to be afraid of. Yes. And that just exploded me out of the box. Now I started looking at psilocybin, ayahuasca, all of these other things, which then again, fast forward again, brought you to me and told me about MDMA. Okay. So that's why there was no hesitation. I'd already done some of that precursor work beforehand of how can I overcome this fear? I know that there's something in my mind. I can't access it. I need help. How do I do that? But I didn't want to fly away anywhere. I was already in significant financial debt. Yeah. I'd lost everything from selling my house. I had to sell my house to pay off debt from my divorce. I lost all of my financial security from him. My son was about to fly the nest, and I had to figure out who the F am I in this world without the title of mom, wife. I'd already shut my business down, entrepreneur. What was I going to do? I'd lost almost everything I could lose from a surface level. Then I sold my car, right? So what's left? What was left? I was being forced to go in and find out what was next for my life. And the
Mhm.
fear that comes with that, the fear that comes with not knowing, the only direction that I could go was to ask God, what's next? And then
Mhm.
poof, you came in and I went, I'm doing that.
Mhm.
That is for me. But I want to also say this. I felt the physical feeling of the medicine starting to work as you were speaking. And we've talked about this
Mhm.
before. There was a very, very real energetic exchange between us
Mhm.
that imprinted on my heart that this is something I need to do as well, because I felt a calmness and, dare I say, peace come over me from top to bottom, all the way down to my toes as you shared your story.
Mhm.
And so I thought, if I can get that from this energetic spiritual friendship and exchange that I have with this woman that I love, how much can I do for myself when I directly connect with God to bring that into my life?
Yeah.
So I hired a guide. She was amazing. But what I realized when I hired her was that doing the work prior to that, I already had so many of those tools in place because I'd been a coach for almost 2 decades.
Right.
I had been working on spirituality and trauma. I knew how to go about this process. So during the experience, she was amazing to hold up. What if being a perfectionist is actually helping you? Okay. What? She like helped me to see these other sides of myself that I thought were so negative. Right. So my initial journey was all about letting go and forgiveness, because I had a son that was leaving. I had an ex-husband that I was a victim in every circumstance when it came to the finances. I was so angry at him about the finances. Everyone thinks it would be about the cheating, the multiple times that he found different partners to be with, and the secret life that he led. It wasn't about that. For me, the part that was the hardest was that he promised he would take care of me
Yeah.
financially. I signed up to go to retire with him. I changed my whole life to move away and let him build his business and do his Ironmans and be a CrossFit competitor and all that, while my life went on hold. But do you see how I allowed that to happen? Okay. So in this journey on MDMA, for me, it was about, how can I find forgiveness for him for what he did to make me lose everything from a material level? And you know what showed up? Forgive yourself first for betraying yourself first. And I was
Mm.
like, ah, I know I betrayed myself first, but how do you begin to forgive yourself for something like that that led to
Mhm.
so much pain for myself and my son?
Mhm.
And I can honestly and truly, truly say that when I left that experience, I had forgiven him completely, completely,
Yeah.
because I was able to see where he was coming from in a bigger way, right? But I also forgave myself because I was only
Mhm.
doing what I thought I was supposed to do: become the good wife, raise the son, support him, do everything, right? This is what your mom showed you to do. So this is what I chose to do. So along with that, letting go of my child. Oh my God, letting go of all the things that we had been through. That even he said, "Mom, I think you've got some PTSD. That thing that happened with me, that was 2 years ago, and you keep and I can see it still affecting our relationship." I'm like,
Mhm.
huh, that was the thing that said to me, bring that into this experience and find a way to let go, because you're only hurting yourself and your son. So again, thread by thread, I like to think about ourselves kind of as this ball of twine, and in the center is our solid person, our soul, our solid being, who we truly are, and all of the threads around it, all the twine around it, are all the experiences and the circumstances that we have covered up our true self with. And so when I pulled that piece of twine and I started to unravel each piece, one piece might be this long. For those who can't see me, it might be an inch long, and it might be forgiving your ex-husband for cheating. Okay, cut it off. How do I use that piece of twine? You can either throw it away, or you can make it useful. The next piece of twine for me was my son and the things that happened between us. Can I use this to help other people, or am I done with it? So I literally unraveled that twine with each thing in my life that had covered up who I truly was. And by the time it was over, oh my God, I even closed my eyes and had like true visuals of peace and like, I don't know, self-love and forgiveness and all of the things. And when I came out of it that evening, it was the peace that I had been seeking, and the peace that passed all understanding, right? That God
Yeah.
speaks of. I found that in that experience, and
Yep.
how I found that was everything that every time I pulled the twine and every time I looked at the experiences I went through, God said, "You have never been alone. Every single time. You've never been alone. And so what I know for sure after doing MDMA was that I am never alone in anything in my life. All I have to do is close my eyes, go back, go within, get still. That's how I learned how to get still and listen for that voice. And the answers are always there. There's so much more to both of our stories, and we could never, ever tell it all. But what I can say is when I experienced that, I was just like you. And I went, I'm flipping this entire model of how I help people upside down. This has to come first. Now, I say this also, not everyone has to do MDMA
Yeah.
to find that connection, to go in and find God. We also each do intensive coaching around how to help people that aren't interested in doing
Exactly.
MDMA.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I do know is for someone as stubborn and strong-willed as me,
Yes.
I needed something to remind me it's already in your mind. You've been there before. Brain spotting, ketamine, all this other stuff. Let's get your amygdala. Let's shut it down, quiet it down, and let's help you to hear this clearly
Mm-hmm.
and without a doubt that God can speak to you from within. So
Mm-hmm.
that's basically what I experienced. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's
Mm-hmm.
been really awesome to stand witness to your transformation too, because I've known you through so many different phases of your life. I've
Yeah.
known you when you were married. I've known you when you found out about the betrayal and were trying to rebuild the marriage. And then you ended up divorced, like all of these phases. And having stood witness to you prior to MDMA and after, I mean, full transformation,
Mm-hmm.
and the letting go that you've been able to do, and the surrendering, and the peace that you have found, and the security that you found, and knowing that you're never alone, Carmen, it's palatable. And it has helped me as well, because I've been integrating right alongside of you, because many of the things that you've discovered were things that I discovered. I was really able to see it was almost like I got this God view of my life and of the chessboard of my life. And I could see how I've been guided and provided for in every step. I could see how every hardship, every challenge in my life was actually for me. And it was a setup and a forum for me to grow. And God designed me. So He designed me to have this no quit as He's designed you. So He has known all along where He's taking us and what He's doing for us and in us. So it's been really, really beautiful and amazing. So thank you for sharing all of that. So going from there, as Carmen said, we could talk for hours and hours about the details of our journeys, and everyone's detail of their journey is very unique to them, because we each have our own unique conditioning and constructs. Although I will say, understanding people the way I do today, I feel like I've gotten more than a PhD in human psychology from my experience sitting inside the medicine with people, not only personally doing it myself, but holding space for dozens and dozens of people, as you have too, Carmen. And I feel like your clients are mine because we share a lot of the, I think, learning points.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've really noticed is that as us humans have some very common themes in the things that we struggle with, and there's some very common conditioning. The details are all very unique to each person, but a lot of the stories that come from certain conditioning in this world is similar. The I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not valuable, I'm not special. And out of that, we develop ways to cope. We develop ways that we protect ourselves. So some of us put up really big armors. Some of us become people pleasers, and we easily morph into what we perceive other people think we need to be. And that was something that I did chronically, and I didn't understand it. Some of us live with absolutely no boundaries, which is very connected to people pleasing. Some of us, again, going back to that armor is our way of protecting ourselves and our way of disassociating. And we struggle to even feel emotion, because feeling emotion is very scary. Perhaps as a child, it wasn't safe for us to express ourselves, or other people told us we were wrong for being who we are or using our voice. So we started to internalize that. And in this, us humans are living from those beliefs that are constructed from these experiences in life. And uh, through a lot of therapy. I mean, you've done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of therapy. I mean, I know we can understand it. We can really understand from our conscious mind, but there can be things that are there in the subconscious mind. So for both of us, MDMA really was the moment that the loop that we were stuck in broke. It was like
Hmm.
it,
Yeah.
and as you've shared here and I've shared, it was the moment for each of us when the voice of God got really, really loud and really clear in a very loving and truthful way. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm here and I've always been here.
Hmm.
And I always will be here. So, inside, when you're inside the medicine, what starts to happen is we're beginning to rewire and refire the nervous system. We're carving out the beginnings of these new neural pathways where we're carving out neural pathways based on a new belief that's grounded and rooted in truth. We can have a lot of beliefs that become what I call our little T truths. And they're the little T truths that we've picked up along the way. You know, I picked up this little T truth that I wasn't special. And in order to be special, I had to earn it by performing and doing for other people. And that became chronic people pleasing, and people pleasers can't live with boundaries, right? So that was a little T truth. But when I was able to see it for what it is, a construct of my mind, not based on real capital T truth, during inside the medicine, then I begin the deprogramming of it. It's not like it goes away overnight, because a lot of this is habit,
Yeah.
and we need to continue the integration work. So,
Yeah. And if I
let's,
could add, let me add
yeah.
this too. Well, two things. One, I forgot to say that after that my first journey, I think I told you that it's almost as if my fight or flight got turned off.
Mhm.
I don't have any of the same charges around things
Yeah.
anymore. Yes, I get my moments where I'm like, "Oh my god, come on now." Like I'll get irritated or something will bother me or I'll get a little bit of, I don't know, friction. But the charge that my body would feel, the sweat from the feet to the head,
Yes.
the burn in the back of the adrenal glands, the constant heart fluttering, this I mean, I was having heart palpitations
Mhm.
2 years before I did ketamine and ended up with a heart rate of 29 over a while with heart palpitations and all of that, right? I have had absolutely zero of that old fight or flight, pounding heart, anything at all.
Yeah.
It's almost like like I said, the switch got turned off. And the other thing that I also want to say is this: is the piece that we have each created within our lives is transferable to the people in our lives.
Mhm.
So what we have started to
Yes.
create is a trailhead for others
Mhm.
to also find their own peace, right? So if we bring the energy of peace and quiet and whatever it is that we found through this modality into our families, our friends, our homes, it's transferable. People
Oh, a
automatically
thousand
start.
percent. Because when
Yes,
we change, we automatically change the dynamic of the relationship with every person
yes.
that we're in relationship with. What we really learn is that it's not our job to fix anyone else. It's our job to be the best me that we can be. So if
Yep.
we show up and we're really honoring God within, and we're serving God and the greatest and highest good of everybody involved, and we're doing that and we're focused on ourselves, then that is the best thing that we can actually do for other people in our lives. And I know for me, that gave me so much freedom, because I stopped doing that. I stopped trying to fix everyone else around me. And I realized that part of why I tried to fix everyone else around me was because I wanted something from them that would then transfer over to me and give me something that I was seeking. And I
Hmm.
realized, oh, wait, I'm going about it all wrong. Everything that I need is inside of me. I don't need to go outside of myself. And it's not my job or my lane to fix anyone else. That's their lane and that's their responsibility. And we all have choice. So, I know over time in our parenting, it's changed our parenting, it's changed our relationship with our partners. My husband and your partner have both continued their own deeper work. They've both done journeys themselves. And I've really, really learned how to, in my own marriage, that I had been rebuilding from the ground up from the time that I met Molly in 2020. But I have really learned, and MDMA has helped me with this. Well, it's what MDMA shows us, really. It's not the drug itself, it's what we're shown inside the medicine. But to let go of my husband, and that my hyper control and hyper vigilance over his actions, that was actually a hindrance. And he was in a very demasculinized state, and there was imbalance in our marriage, and I was so masculine, and that was not allowing him to be the healthy masculine that God desires for him to be in our marriage. So the more that I've let go and I've softened and I've changed, it's rippled out in our home, and our home is a transformed atmosphere, and it's become this beautiful container for us, to all of us here, to continue to grow and
Yeah.
heal and ascend.
When
So
we interrupt other people's journey by trying to fix and micromanage and people please and control, it stops their growth.
1000% it
So
does.
if we want someone else to grow along with us and beside us,
Yeah.
all we have to do is be the example, be the change,
Hmm.
and then allow the other people to choose whether they want to come along or
Hmm.
not. But and I always say this when I work with couples or families or whatever, I say when one person in the dynamics of a family or relationship starts to shift and change, the other one or the other ones don't have a choice
Yeah.
of moving in some capacity. They're either
Yes.
going to lean in and want to change, or
Hmm.
they're going to lean out and get afraid or whatever, but they will start to feel and change.
Oh yeah,
And that's what we
absolutely.
want. That's what we want. Yeah.
It is what we want. It is what we want.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely. Let's shift into just a very brief synopsis on, what is MDMA? Why does it work? But let's talk about it from for our people, like just terms that they can understand, because I'll drop in the show notes here a link to our Substack. We have a Substack called Sacred Healing with MDMA. And on our Substack, we have a free and a paid, but on the Substack, there's all the clinical information you could possibly want, research, all the things. So if you're interested in learning that, you listeners, you can go to our Substack. But let's just touch here on what it is, Carmen. I'd say, we both have mentioned psychedelics and plant medicine, and MDMA is not that. It
Mhm.
gets glommed together with them because of the research that's done through MAPS, but it is not a psychedelic. It's actually an empathogen that quiets the fear response, which happens in the amygdala in the brain. We are really, really intricately designed. So our mind protects us. It thinks it's doing the right thing by protecting us, and it doesn't let us in the amygdala sometimes, which is why MDMA is so powerful, because it's going to quiet that fear response, and it really opens the inner world up to the healing. It shows us it's this little loving flashlight that's like, hey, let's go into this dark crevice and take a look
Mhm.
without fear, without being triggered, essentially, with that danger, don't go in, and let's take a look. And it temporarily, for the 5, 6 hours that you're inside the medicine, it's lowering the defenses of the ego and the fear based constructs that are there, because we all have them, right? It's fear. So it's quieting that, so that what's leading? Love is leading, God is leading, source is leading. And I love how you explain it in lifting the veil.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because really, I mean, it's everything that's outside of God is an illusion.
Mm.
So if the anxiety, depression, sadness, fear, I mean, all of the things of this earthly plane that we're living on that don't bring us peace and don't give us this feeling of love is really an illusion that we create. We create these stories in our minds about, I mean, just think about, people who maybe you've been out in public and you're looking around and maybe you have some self consciousness. We've got a lot of socially anxious teenagers and children walking around, and I hear about all the stories. And my son, for one, he'll say, you walk into a party and everybody's looking at you, and it's a story in your mind, right?
Yeah.
It's not really true.
Yeah.
So when we have things happen in our lives that are here that might be hard or difficult or challenging or scary or whatever, we tend to, as humans, go all in on those stories. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I don't like the way my hair looks. Oh, I don't like what I'm wearing. Oh, all of that. But with MDMA, it's like this. None of that really exists. All the illusions
Ah,
are quieted, and
mhm.
all that's there for us really is this this true love, the oxytocin, the serotonin, all of
Mhm.
the feelings of peace and bliss and love. I
Mhm.
like to say, that MDMA literally is the key that unlocks the door that we can push open just a little bit so we can see the crack of light. It's
Yeah.
up to us after the experience. And I want to make sure that we push this home.
Yeah.
MDMA is, like I said, it's a tiny little thing that opens the door. The work that comes to find the peace and the letting go and the forgiveness and all that comes with the integration process
Yes.
after the experience. That's when we truly choose, and you can't, it is a choice to push that door open as hard and fast as
Mhm.
possible. Like Jen and I like to do everything. We're like, it can help, it can heal, we can help people. Let's push the door open.
Mhm.
And sometimes, like some of our clients, they like to gently nudge it open a little and
Mhm.
see what's behind there. But behind that door is light if we choose, right?
Yes.
It is peace, it is love, it is acceptance, it's self worth, it's all of the things that we've been seeking all of our life, that all of this illusion and this nonsense keeps us from seeing.
Mhm.
So it shows us what's truly possible for ourselves if we
Mhm.
choose to push that door open.
Mhm.
So I and you, I know this for sure, we push that door open and open and open because what
Yes.
we want is we want the peace that passes all understanding.
Mhm.
And we know that it's possible because we've
Mhm.
experienced it and we want to bring that to the world. So,
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to loop back to something that you said a little bit earlier about the MDMA really losing the emotional charge around things. So it doesn't mean that the old constructs don't come back up. They do. The hook of the mind is very strong. Our ego is like, "Hey, I'm going to fight here." And so the things will come back up that you are addressing during a journey. I guided a journey yesterday, so it's fresh on my mind. But the client that I was guiding was raised in a home where her parents didn't have a very healthy marriage. The dad was an alcoholic, and mom clearly has a lot of her own conditions that lead to her own constructs of the mind. And so she had a twin brother with special needs. And so he got a lot of attention. Dad's drinking, she was made to be wrong in the eyes. At least her perception was that her mother didn't love her, wasn't showing her love. She didn't feel that she could be her true, authentic self. So she learned as a child to disassociate. And disassociation became her way of being in the world. And that got her into a lot of situations that weren't great for her. And there were consequences to that. And
Mhm.
fast forward, she's much older now, and she realized like she's done a lot of things to find peace, to find healing in her physical body and her mental health. And she came to this place where she's like, I have to understand this. I need to get inside and understand. So, inside the medicine, she was able to begin to see that she is actually inherently worthy.
Mhm.
She was able to begin to see. And again, this is those beginnings of the new neural pathways we're carving out, that she is unconditionally loved and that she has a divine mother and father. And even though the earthly mother, father, did not show her the love that she needed, and that's very painful. That's very, very painful. She has that inner knowing now that she is loved, and that love will never be taken from her, that she is cared for and guided and worthy.
Yeah.
So inside the MDMA, it's creating the conditions for the deep introspection, for bringing compassion, grace. I always emphasize with people, it's like grace and compassion for self. We
Mhm.
can't show others real, true grace and compassion until we show it for self. So start with self. So we
Yeah.
begin to do that inside medicine. Perhaps there's forgiveness that needs to be had, deeper connection with God, processing of trauma, a lot of traumatic events, seeing the false beliefs, any of the identity distortions, like really seeing all of that inside the medicine. But it's outside the medicine then that you now continue the work. It's not a magic eraser that erases it all. It shows it to us, and you begin to introduce truth. And because you've seen it, You can never unsee it. You
Yeah.
remember everything from
Yep.
your journey. You are very, very awake. You are very clear minded. You're actually more clear minded than you've ever been in your life. You record it. That's part of the therapeutic integration process after, is to listen to the recording, because it's so important that we continue to take another bike ride on that new neural pathway and to step away. But outside the medicine, you are so much more empowered to continue the integration work, to have the distorted belief pop back up, and it will, and to have a life circumstance come in your face, and it will, and to then in that moment choose, how do I want to feel? Do I want to feed this little T truth? Do I want to feed this old construct? It doesn't feel very good. No, I don't. What do I want to feed? I want to feed truth. So, what do I need to get myself there? Sometimes it's as simple as tap on the shoulder, drop back in. Other times we need to somatically embody it. We need to move our body, use our breath, read scripture, listen to music, call a friend, get outside in nature, whatever that is, to help you to embody the truth, get into it. And a lot of it comes from doing. For
Yeah. Oh
me
yeah.
on
Yeah.
my journey over the last year and a half, it's I have to take action. Like, I can think about it all day long, I can read books all day long, but in order for me to galvanize the new way of being in the world and being in myself and being with God, I have to take a different action. So I could think the thought, I could catch the old limiting belief, but now I got to do the big scary thing.
Mhm.
And the more that I've done the big scary thing, the more that I have been embodying God's truth, embodying love, and I mean, all kinds of shifts. I mean, physical changes, you were mentioning that. I've experienced them myself in multitude of ways. I was someone who struggled with insomnia my whole life. I sleep very, very deeply through the night. That was all nervous system. I understand that. My thyroid is functioning better than it ever has been before, ever. And I've really done nothing
Oh, well,
physiological
both
for
of us,
it.
both of
Both of
us, both of
us.
our labs have come back completely like the
Yeah.
best labs I've ever had.
Hmm.
And I have taken zero, hardly any stuff, like
Yeah.
not zero, but maybe 5% of the supplements I've taken in the
Hmm.
last probably 5 years. And it has been, I mean, unbelievable just to see it on black and white, right?
Oh, to see it on black and white is like, it just speaks to the power of doing this deeper work
Yeah.
and how real the metaphysical is. When you look at thyroid, that's your throat
Communication.
chakra, and that's your
Hmm.
communication center. So when you start actually using your voice more, oh, go figure, your thyroid itself starts to function better.
Yeah.
So let's um like wrap this episode up for our listeners with how you and I are using MDMA in the sacred healing work today.
Hmm. Yeah. So again, Substack, our Substack account is Sacred Healing with MDMA.
Mhm.
I think we've got every link known to man out there to
Mhm.
to go down the rabbit hole of learning. So we don't
Yeah.
like to spend a lot of time talking about it when you can go out and do the research for yourself. It's the first step, actually, in honoring something that you want to do for yourself, is to go out and learn and see if it's something that's
Mhm.
for you, right? So using MDMA in my practice and in what I do now, um, has been very powerful for, like we talked about earlier, for a couple of reasons. Because if we have trauma that's unaddressed and it's shoved down and we can't access it, or sometimes we have it and we don't even know it's there,
Mhm.
it's really, really hard to quiet that, to go after it, to pick it apart. It's like, I think about our lives kind of like a puzzle, that we drop on the floor, and every piece of that puzzle represents something in our life that we
Mhm.
have either created, like codependency, perfectionism, or maybe it's anxiety or thyroid problems or whatever. It's every piece of that puzzle is a part of who we are over the years, right? So with MDMA, what I like to do with my clients is I'd like to say, I want you to look at that, and I want you to start picking up each piece and
Mm.
having gratitude for every single piece of that puzzle that created that
Mhm.
whole person that you are today. And what MDMA helps us to do is to put it back together in a different way. And so
Mm.
that's the integration process, right? Picking each piece up, having gratitude for it, thanking it for whatever it has done for our lives to bring us to this place, and integrating in a loving way, right? That helps us to feel more full, more whole as the adult that we are. That's why integration is so important. Like, after the
It is.
experience, the integration is everything. So, using it in my business, I literally do maybe 2%, of
Mhm.
anything when it comes to health and wellness anymore. Everything is about how do we go after this in a way that
Mhm.
helps you to make a permanent change in your mind, your heart, your soul, your body. How do we get you closer to God if you've never had one, and help you to depend on Him more if you've been
Mhm.
maybe feeling disconnected? So, I think it's really interesting that you and I both now have flipped our businesses upside down, and we both use this type of modality or this approach, intensive coaching, dig
Mhm.
deep, digging deep spirituality, to help people to make the earthly changes easier for themselves.
Yeah.
That's how we've been
Oh,
doing this.
absolutely. As you said at the beginning of the episode, when you really understand who you are and whose you are, taking care of the temple that God resides in is so much easier.
Mm,
You don't feel the resistance. There's a reason there's resistance there.
yes.
And we want to unpack why you feel resistant to fueling your body well and quieting noise and getting out in nature and sleeping. There's reasons. There's something there that's driving that behavior. So what it really feels like when you do this deeper work, and perhaps you choose to bring MDMA into your deeper work, it feels like you're no longer driving a car uphill with the emergency brake on. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, this isn't as hard. It shouldn't be hard. None of this
No.
should be hard, because when we really learn how to come from love, to flow from that place, that limitless well of divine love that is within us, and we love ourselves really well from that place, and we
Yep.
make ourselves a priority, just being in this world and loving other people and serving and living out your purpose, and it becomes easier. You want to take care of your body. You're no longer all upset that you have to, or that your body is expressing itself with a physical symptom. You actually get really curious about where the physical symptom is coming from. And you even use that. I have a lot of clients that I've helped on journeys. Actually, a lot of the clients, my initial clients that I guided on journeys, were former clients of mine, present or former, that I knew their stories really well. And I knew, that we had hit a place that we couldn't go any further. And I had quite a few that really struggled with histamine. A lot of women struggle with histamine for a variety of reasons, but they would have these histamine flares, and we knew they were rooted in metaphysical. We had covered every physiological driver of their histamine out there. And it was like they were really sensitive. And a lot of sensitive people struggle with histamine, because a lot of sensitive people are absorbing too much energy of others. They're people
Hmm.
pleasers. They're taking on things that aren't theirs. And now their body is literally becoming allergic to it. And it's like screaming, please stop, please stop.
Hmm.
And when we did MDMA journeys with them, every single one of them have now almost, like, their histamine issues are almost gone. And if they're not gone, they're really able to identify why it's showing up for them. Sometimes it is physiological, but most often it's, oh, I have really leaky boundaries. I'm not using my voice. I'm not speaking my truth. There's something that needs to come up and out. So yeah, it's,
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that resistance is suffering. If you're resisting what is, you
mhm,
suffer. When you
yeah,
accept what is, whether it's painful or happy or sad or whatever it is, when you accept it, the suffering is less.
yeah,
So, I mean, when we resist our lives, we suffer. When we
yeah.
resist what is, we suffer. So MDMA helps us. It just helps us to get step out of resistance and allow the things to come in that
Mhm,
we have been resisting looking at,
mhm.
touching, or fixing, and look at it with non-judgment, which to me is
Yes.
one of the most important things. Yeah. So,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So what we've done, so you're using it and you're coaching, and I'm using it too. And it really is for people who are called. We don't push anybody to do this work. This isn't something that is just a hard sell type of a deal.
Mm-mm.
It really is a calling. We invite people who feel called. There is a calling. You felt that calling. I felt the calling. And I can say that every person that I've guided on a journey has, in one way or another, felt called to this. The medicine
Yep.
itself, it's very sacred. It's um, uh, there's energy about it that is sacred. I always say to people that the medicine, in combination with your soul and God, lead, that it's leading the journey. So what needs to come up, what needs to be addressed, is what will be shown to us inside the medicine. We prepare our clients really well. So we're preparing them before the journeys. We meet with our clients who are choosing to do this. We meet with them before. We make sure that they're properly setting their intentions, and then they go into the experience itself, and we are with them for 5-6 hours the entire time. We're doing it virtually with them, which actually anecdotal research has shown that people feel even more comfortable in their the comfort of their own home, on their favorite couch with their favorite blanket and perhaps a pet next to them. And we're with them. It feels as if there's no time that has gone by. Usually clients will say, what, how is it 5 hours later? And you and I, as guides, when we do it, we're so dropped in. I mean, the time for me flies as well. And I'm
Mhm.
energetically in that vibration with them. I feel it. I feel the
Mhm.
medicine.
Yep.
And afterwards, we really honor the integration. So part of our packaging is to offer 2 integration coaching calls so that we're helping people to move forward. We're making sure that they have the tools and on board, and that they're succinctly taking what they were shown on the journey itself and able to continue to move themselves forward. And we created the Substack, a private community where anybody who goes through a journey with one of us gets put into the private community, or you can join it. You can pay. You don't have to have done a journey as well. And we offer a support. So we offer support in that community outside of the private one-on-one coaching sessions that people get with us. They can purchase more coaching sessions as well. And we also do group live coaching sessions, where that's really cool to see people collectively come together who've experienced this, because ultimately we're all doing the same thing here. We're human beings on this journey, and we're seeking freedom and peace, and to know that we're unconditionally loved and worthy. So when we have people come together in that way, it's really beautiful, and the energy of that is really neat to see. So that is another one of the reasons why you and I have joined together, because after doing the work individually, guiding people for about 6 months, we turned to each other and said, how do we really honor the integrity of what we feel is so important in this work? And that's keeping God at the front, at the center. This really is a very sacred spiritual experience. And you and I firmly believe that when we are deeply, deeply rooted in God, and we are aligned with our divine design. And that requires us getting to know God and getting to know ourselves, and really authentically becoming who we've been created to be. Then there is no dis-ease, right? And so that needs to be addressed. So you and I, our uniqueness, the way we're unique, is why we came together with the mission of sacred healing with MDMA. Is like, we were going to keep the integrity of how we do this work and our unique process. It doesn't mean that people come to us like they have to, whether they have this, it's not a religious thing. It's not like they have to have the same religious practice, right? Or they're the same religious understanding of God. Anybody can come to us, but we're not going to deny that there is only one power. And in order to dissolve and deprogram all the stuff that was constructed throughout your lifetime, we need to counter it with truth. And how do you counter it with truth? You continue to return to the truth that God is inside of you, that you're created on purpose, for a purpose, that you are worthy, that you are unconditionally loved. And we're very much we honor our work. We're very deeply connected. God is using us as vessels in this work. So in many ways, I say to my clients when I'm with them, I'm like, I'm here and I am allowing myself to be used. Like, God is working through me and speaking through me, and I'm really listening. So what I'm doing is I'm holding this space for you, and I'm listening, and I'm reflecting back to you, and perhaps challenging you with questions. And I know you're very much the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, this is the beginning of many more conversations. There's a
Yeah.
lot more to talk about,
Mhm.
a lot more things to share, more vulnerability from both of us about our healing journeys here on this
Mhm.
earth. And I think as we go along, I mean, we'd love to hear from people.
Yeah.
What are you curious about?
Yeah.
What are the questions that you have? But again, go to Substack and read everything
Yep.
you can read. But if you want to know about our personal experiences and you
Yeah.
want to ask us questions, Jen, it's your podcast, so I'm sure you can direct them
Yes.
in the show notes on how to find us and how to communicate with us
Yes.
more.
I
But yeah,
will. I will.
yeah,
We just
good.
recently started a Facebook group called The Healing Place, because we are really trying to bring people together in a with this joint mission of, again, see people who are seeking deeper levels of healing. And so that's free. You can join us there. We have our Substack community. I'll drop in the show notes too. We have some testimonials. We can share a PDF with you if you want to read about other people's experiences. And yes, please, anyone listening, share your questions with us. Reach out to us if you want to hear more. If you are curious if this is something that would be right for you, you can hop on a discovery call with Carmen or myself. Wrapping all of this up, Carmen, one of the most beautiful things that has come out of our friendship is this joint mission to help people break free from the worldly programming and the performance-based identity that so many of us have lived in. You've lived in it. I've lived in it. To break free of the trauma loops, to really break free of living in duality and fear, and to create essentially heaven on earth. That starts with us, each individual person really embodying God, embodying Christ, embodying Christ consciousness. And we help them do that by helping them remember who they are. Remember who you are before the world's told you who to be. You can stay stuck in the prison of your own constructs, or you get to choose the hard of breaking free. I say to people, listen, this is hard. And some people will say, I'm scared about the hard work of integration. I'm like, it is not easy. I mean, you're going to have to challenge your constructs over and over, right? It's not, but that hard is a lot easier than the hard of staying stuck and sitting in the pain of your limited life, right? These limitations. So choose your heart. You get to choose it. Nobody's going to come out and drag you out of that prison that you've constructed for yourself. You're going to walk yourself out of it. Like you said, you take the key, and we do all have the key in our own possession. We just might not know it. So thank you, Carmen, for having this conversation with me. Oh, you will absolutely be on the podcast again. We have so many conversations that the two of us can have and bring to our listeners here. Just for the listeners, another reminder for you. Change happens, truly happens. One soul, one person at a time. And that can start with you. You want to help make the world a better place. Perhaps you've been somebody who's been a fixer and a rescuer, and that has burnt you to the ground. Start with yourself. And when you do, I promise you that change will ripple out to the world. This work that we're talking about here today, it's not about bypassing the hard things in your life. It's about doing the most sacred work that there is, one step at a time. Again, we appreciate you coming here today, listening to the end of this episode. If this episode has touched you in any way, shape, or form, I invite you to rate and review and share it. That helps other people to hear these messages. We will drop in the show notes links to everything that we've talked about here today, where you can find Carmen, where you can find me. And again, continue surrendering into this beautiful, abundant life that God has available for all of us. Take care. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.